event.
Be happy to do so. Would you please stand and, if so willing, to bow your head? Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this incredible city that you've gifted us with. We thank you for the wonderful people in this community that do just amazing things each and every day. Would you please watch over our city staff as they work to help the city become a better city and to improve the quality of life for our community? And would you just bless and give wisdom to our city council members and mayor as they make these difficult decisions for our community? And I ask all these things in your name. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you. And I'd be happy to talk a little bit about Love Fullerton. Love Fullerton comes out of OC United. Can anybody tell me here? Anybody here? If you raise your hand, have you been a part of Love Fullerton before? Come on, a few of you out there, great. So Love Fullerton is on April 30th. It's going to be really a day of service that you can sign up online by going to OC United or lovefullerton.org. We started this off about 3 years ago, and we had about 2,000 volunteers for our city. We are going to be at pretty much every elementary school, every high school. I see my fellow Lancers here. We will be at Sunny Hills High School as well with a paint project. You can go online and sign up there. We'll have about 70 different projects throughout the city. And so we'll be beginning by meeting in our downtown plaza area near the museum at about 8 a.m. About 9:30, we're going to go to different areas within the city and do the projects. And then we're going to give you all T-shirts that say Love Fullerton. And then when you're done with your projects at about 12:30, we want to give you a free barbecue and thank you for being part of that. And for you young kids, it's all-you-can-eat barbecue. So that's good stuff, right? And so we're going to be holding that at the at actually Fullerton College right now in the Quad area. And so the really cool thing about this is it began in the city of Fullerton, but because of the success, just in 3 years, now the following cities of La Habra, Placentia, Buena Park, Brea, and one district of Anaheim will all be joining us on that same day doing projects throughout North Orange County. And then most of those cities will be coming back to Fullerton to enjoy our free barbecue. So we'd invite you guys to be there. It's a great time, and we'd love to see if you can sign up and get your hands dirty for just about 3.5 hours. So thank you, Mayor.
Thanks so much. Now if you'll join us, Councilman Seaborn's going to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, is there any closed session report?
Yes, Mrs. Mayor, there is. With respect to the case of Wardle versus the City of Fullerton, the council on a 4-1 vote with Mr. Whitaker voting no, approved a settlement in the matter for the sum of $600,000.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, is there any ex parte communications? No. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into our presentations. Before we do our regularly scheduled presentations, Councilman Seaborn has asked to make a special presentation.
All right, we all know it's April, but what does that really mean? It means it's National Poetry Month. So I would like to invite down some folks from the community who are poets themselves and help put together essentially the equivalent to the Art Walk, but with poetry on I believe it's the first Saturday of each month. Come on down. And as you're coming down, I'll read some of the whereases. So, whereas the Academy of American Poets established the month of April as National Poetry Month in 1996, and National Poetry Month seeks to highlight the extraordinary legacy and ongoing achievement of American poets, introduce Americans to the pleasures and benefits of reading poetry, bring poets and poetry to the public in immediate and innovative ways, make poetry an important part of our children's education, And whereas, a whole lot of them. Now, there be it resolved that I, Greg Seaborn, in behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim April 1 through April 30th, 2016 as National Poetry Month. I call upon public officials, educators, librarians, and all the citizens of Fullerton to observe this month to celebrate the cultural riches of our community has to offer and to recognize the important role poetry of poetry in creating and sustaining this great nation with appropriate ceremonies and activities and programs related to poetry. So with this, I'll present this. And if each of you could come up and just introduce yourselves. And I think you even have a little poem.
Yes, we do. Hi, I'm Kim Martin, one of the organizers of a Poetic Uprising. We do first Saturdays at Max Bloom's, and we have featured poets and open mic. So I hope to see many of you out there. We're doing poetry contest in conjunction with the library, so check it out, and you can win a feature on stage next month at our show. And I'll introduce Jason. He's our main poet.
Hi, I'm Jason Fairhurst Wall. I'm actually the host of a Poetic Uprising at Max Bloom's Cafe Noir each and every first Saturday night of the month. We had a very successful outing this past Saturday, and I would just encourage everyone to come out and really support the arts, especially poetry. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Quanda Graves, better known as Until. I am poet and author of I Just Want to Write, and I was a featured poet at Max Bloom's Cafe for Poetic Uprising, and I was a finished resident. So I don't want to do a poem, it's just a quote of mine, and it says, "Poetry is life, life is poetry. The world has neither, it's not without neither." So just make sure that you keep that in mind.
Thank you. Can we come over here for a quick photo?
Thank you.
All right, go be poetic.
Tonight we have some other special presentations too. I first want to start with the Sunny Hills High School boys soccer team, and we really have a special opportunity tonight to congratulate the Sunny Hills boys soccer team, who have had an incredible year and are the newly crowned CIF Division II champions. Give it up for Lancer Soccer. Okay. And their coach, Mike Shady, is here with us. Mike, why don't you come up? Mike's a 30-year coach who was just named the 2016 CIF Southern Section Division II Coach of the Year. And the boys, and that's not all, the boys soccer coach of the year by OC Varsity. And the team not only had a terrific season, but they won 20 matches, and they're the undefeated league champions. Congratulations, Mike.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Fitzgerald and to present her a Lancer T-shirt.
Awesome.
So,
Thanks.
it's,
Cool.
and
That's
then
terrific.
the accomplishments on the
I
back.
love it.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to also thank the City Council for having us here this evening. And just recognize, if we can stand, our athletic director, John Caffrey, is here. Okay, then assistant coach, because, I think it's really important to surround yourself with good people, and that's what made it happen for me as a head coach. So assistant coach Juan Sotelo. And then assistant coach Jordan Brinkley is here somewhere. They said, right here. Jordan, can you put your hand up? I don't know, was Coach Belmonte here? Okay.
That's great. So, Coach Shady, I want to present you with a couple things here tonight. First of all, I want to give you a certificate from the city for exactly what we talked about, your great championship this year, and all of the recognition that you've gotten. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And then I also, when you're mayor, you can, pick a theme for your year. And the theme that I've chosen for this year is excellence in service. And I have these challenge coins, and I want to give you one because there's a quote on the back of this by a world tennis champion and also humanitarian, Arthur Ashe. And he said, start where you are. Use what you have and do what you can. And you're obviously doing that. You've done that for the last 30 years, and you have made a difference not only in these guys' lives, but for the last 30 years, people have been influenced positively by you. And I hope that this will serve as a reminder that it doesn't go unnoticed and that you must keep at it.
Wow, thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah, you're so welcome. Stay up here. So, and also, can we have the team and then John and Juan, why don't you come up, and Jordan, come on up and let's get a picture together, okay? Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Very special.
Okay, short guys in the front, tall guys move to the back. Shady's totally up front with me.
That's what I was trying to say. There's no room.
Okay, let me out, guys. Let me out. Okay, Mike, you on that side? Okay, I'm on this side. Okay, got my t-shirt. That's good. You guys have taken team pictures before, haven't you? Thanks.
No belly slippers. No belly slippers.
Okay, and now we have, and I know some people have to leave to get to a board meeting because that's what you do. You're a volunteer, so go. Please go. I completely understand, trust me. Let's see, so Julia James, our Administrative Services Director, is here, and she's going to help me honor Lynn Burleth, who is celebrating her 30th anniversary as an employee here in Fullerton, and she's getting ready to retire. So Lynn, could you come up as well? Julia?
Wait, yeah. Let the room clear out. I know. I don't want to trip on this. Okay. Should we go now? So this evening we are recognizing Lynn Burleth as she prepares to retire after 30 years of service with the City of Fullerton. Lynn was hired in October of 1985 as an account clerk and promoted to payroll technician in 2004. As payroll technician, Lynn works mostly behind the scene, processing payroll biweekly for over 800 employees. If you have never done payroll, you may think that this is a job that is fairly predictable, but as Lynn can attest, the job is far from routine. Payroll is a complex and time-consuming process requiring great attention to detail and compliance with strict deadlines, not to mention the high expectations of her customers, who also happen to be her coworkers. Making the job even more challenging is keeping up with the ever-changing PERS procedures, labor agreement provisions, and legal requirements related to employee pay. While many cities of Fullerton's size have more than one payroll technician on staff, until recently and through most of her tenure, Lynn has worked as the only tech. As such, Lynn has often found it was often found working extra hours on weekends or on non-work days to keep matters on track. Despite all of the job's demands, Lynn has always maintained a great attitude and a cheerful presence. We are grateful for her hard work and dedication throughout the years, and she will truly be missed as we say goodbye next month to Lynn.
Lynn, as a small token of our appreciation, we want to present this city tile to you to proudly display in your home.
I will.
No throwing darts at it. You proudly display it.
I will not.
And I want a picture too. Come on. Good. After 30 years, if you're not throwing darts, that's pretty good. Do you want to say something?
Just want to take the opportunity. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to live and work in the city, and I really like what I do, and I'm going to miss a lot of the people, but it's time. I'm ready to go do something and not have deadlines and not have all those things that I've got to get done. So my husband's retiring too, or he has, and so we're planning on enjoying it and just doing whatever we want when we want. Alaska. Thank you.
Now I'd like to invite up Lieutenant Mike Klabowski, who in partnership with Mothers Against Drunk Driving is going to help recognize some of our talented police officers for their efforts in combating drunk driving in 2015 and ultimately saving lives. Lieutenant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Go ahead and let them on in. And who said Lynn could leave? Wow. Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Mike Klabowski, and I run the Traffic Bureau. Today we are here on behalf of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, to recognize 10 Fullerton police officers for their outstanding efforts in combating drunk driving last year. Each year, almost 10,000 people are killed in alcohol-related crashes in the United States, accounting for nearly one-third of all traffic-related deaths on our roads and highways. This amounts to at least one person killed each hour by a drunk driver. Over 1,000 of these deaths were children between the ages of 1 and 14. Every other minute, a person is seriously injured in an alcohol-related crash. Drugs, other than alcohol, legal and illegal, are involved in about 16% of motor vehicle crashes. Often these drugs, such as marijuana and cocaine, are used in combination with alcohol. Drivers with a BAC of 0.08% or higher involved in fatal crashes were 7 times more likely to have a prior conviction for DWI than drivers with no alcohol in their system. In 2014, over 1.1 million drivers were arrested for driving under influence of alcohol or narcotics. Last year, Fullerton police officers made 744 drunk driving arrests. Because of their hard work and effort, there were no traffic-related fatalities due to alcohol last year in the city of Fullerton, a reduction of 200% from 2014. These 10 officers will be receiving a DUI pin tonight that signifies they made over 25 DUI arrests last year. They will be able to proudly wear this pin on their uniform. For many of these officers, this will be the second or third DUI pin they have received. One of these officers, Corporal Bridges, has received this DUI pin for 8 years in a row. These pins are special and should be taken seriously. I believe that with each DUI arrest made, a traffic accident is prevented and possibly an innocent life saved. Please help me acknowledge the efforts of these officers as they receive their awards. Joshua Manus, 26 DUI arrest. Nicholas Demkowski, 26 DUI arrests. Jonathan Munoz, 27 DUI arrests. I'd like to acknowledge Officer Timothy Jaber with 28 DUI arrests. He couldn't make it here tonight. Eric Bridges, 28 DUI arrests. Corporal Boss, 31 DUI arrests. He works for me.
Tell your child to be quiet over there, too, would you?
Officer Denny Bach, 33 DUI arrests. One of our legacy sons, Michael Halverson, 35 DUI arrests. Ryan Warner, Corporal, 35 DUI arrests. Sorry, Madam Mayor. Go. All right, and leading the pack with 61 DUI arrests. He received his award last week at the Mothers Against Drunk Driver banquet that we had in Garden Grove. 61 DUI arrests, Officer Scott Flynn. Do we want a group picture real quick? Or? Sure. Okay. All right, guys, come back on it.
Mike, do those arrests all result in convictions or guilty pleas, or are these bare arrests? How do you count?
These are all the original arrests. Most of our DUI arrests result in conviction. I would say we're over 90%.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And we're good. Nice job. Well done. Good job, baby.
Thanks, Michael.
April is also Donate Life Month, and joining us tonight, and I'd invite you to come forward, is living donor Steve Lang, and Donate Life founders Kathleen and Craig Hostert, and I'd invite you to come up here with me, and I have a certificate to present to you. And as you may know, hopefully you do, April 2016 is Donate Life Month. And on April 30th, not only are we having Love Fullerton, but before you come to Love Fullerton, please go to the Donate Life annual run walk at Cal State Fullerton. And it's a family-friendly event that aims to join organ transplant recipients in an attempt to break the Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm going to let them tell you more about this walk. But any of you, regardless of age, can register for the walk and also can register to be a donor. I know if you don't already have a little donor sticker on your driver's license, then you need one so you can be so you can be part of the movement here. So please help me congratulate all of these fine people, and along with the certificate that I have for you declaring April Donate Life Month, I also have challenge coins for both Steve and the Hosterts, just because I want it to continue to encourage you to do what you're doing. You inspire so many people, and I hope it'll continue to serve as a continued challenge, but also a thank you for what you already do.
Thank you, Mayor Fitzgerald. So yeah, we are going for the Guinness World Record of the most transplant recipients in one location at one time. We have to beat a number that Hong Kong set about 3 years ago. And also with proclamations, to let you know how this has advanced, we started out very small with the city of Fullerton, spread to Anaheim, Tustin, out of 205 cities in the LA area. We have about 185 cities proclaiming April National Donate Life Month. And Mayor, that is partly because the city of Fullerton has been our partner in achieving this goal. And also people at our walk, we get 5,000 donor families. We get people like this. This past year, we met a mother. She was from Texas. She lost both her daughters and her unborn grandchild in a car accident at the same time. We met the recipient of her daughter's liver. And this family is bound together. The mother was contemplating taking her own life because she couldn't bear the excruciating pain of losing her daughter. But since her daughter had chosen to be an organ donor, the recipient sent out a letter to meet the donor mother and the donor father because he lost her entire family. She got that letter the day she was contemplating taking her own life. It just tells you the miracle when somebody makes that decision to be a donor, the lives that you affect, not only your own, but people that you don't even know. So with that, I would like to introduce Steve. And Steve's got a pretty remarkable story. Steve, you want to tell us something just a little bit?
Thank you very much. Yeah, my story started about 7 years ago, and I got a letter at the church that I belong to, which said that there was one of the members there was having problems with their kidney. And he had a 7-year-old son, and I thought, he needs to be around for his son. Needs to be around for his life. So I was kind of naive and thought, O positive blood was all you needed. But it turns out to be a little bit more sophisticated than that. But as it turned out, I was a match. And so tonight I'd like to introduce Jamie Carvlin, who is the recipient. We become great friends. His son is now 13, and we go to the run walk. And I can tell you that it doesn't get any better when you see your friend and father with his son walking ahead of you and realizing that this all happened partly because of my ability to donate my kidney. So it's changed my life. Kathleen and I were talking about how our lives are changed as well on the other side. So I would encourage you to be. I'm a donor. I have it on my list for anything else that it can be taken when I pass. I want to make it a chance for other people to live and to enjoy their lives. So I would encourage you to become a donor and come to the Run Walk, and you'll see how many people are affected by this miracle. It truly is a miracle. Here's Jamie.
Thank you very much. I just want to let you know that gentleman behind me, Steve, is a hero. And, you think of athletes, you think of celebrities getting up and doing movies or, whatever they do that is in the limelight. But it's the people like Steve and the people that are associated with Donate Life that take that opportunity to save a life. And I'm honored. And today is 75 months ago. Today was the day that I received Steve's kidney, and it's doing great. And then give him a round of applause because Steve is a hero.
think we also have representatives here. We're kind of clearing out the audience as we go, aren't we? I think we have representatives here from the Railroad Days that's coming up. And I would invite you to come tell us about it. Railroad Days has been a longstanding tradition in our town. And I know personally, my family and I love it. So we're excited to have it come back. And why don't you tell us a little bit about it this year?
Well, the 30th of April is going to be a busy weekend because that's the first day of Railroad Days. We also run on the 1st of May from 9 to 5 both days. The usual 13 model railroad clubs will be there under one big tent. Food vendors, railroad memorabilia vendors. There's a couple, we've got some different ones coming this year.
The Lego train.
The Lego trains, yeah, that's one of the model railroad clubs. The Lego trains will be there. I have a little story about them. The year that we did leave Fullerton, we went to Brea. We had a huge Lego layout in one of the stores up there. We dropped an engine, and they're all made out of your little Lego blocks. Well, it took 4 old men sitting there for an hour and a half when finally a mother walked in, and she says, "My son knows how to do Legos." Well, he came in about 15 minutes. He had that engine back together and working. So you need to come out and see them. It's quite a feat that they go through. BNSF will have their diesel locomotive here. The steam locomotive is coming. Amtrak will have some equipment here. And we have added 3 new cars to our collection down there, so they will be open. We're currently trying to refurbish them so it looks halfway decent for the public. But it's April 30th, May 1st, 9 to 5 p.m.
Great. We're looking forward to
All right.
it. Yeah,
Jim,
thanks for
thank you
continuing
very
to do
much.
it. Yeah,
Get it the right way.
Harold, do you have any idea when the steam locomotive will be coming through?
I'd like to say yes, but we don't know it's coming until we see the smoke coming down the
Gotcha.
tracks. It should be here Friday, sometime afternoon. But
right.
Depending upon how the railroad gets their stuff laid out, because BNS has to
Sure.
come with them. But anytime afternoon. Last year it came on Thursday, which was a surprise to us. But
And that is not to be missed.
No,
that
it's
is really exciting.
You can't imagine. There's more people, I think, the night that it leaves when it goes back through town. Because what they do, they put the diesel locomotive behind him. And he gets to pull the diesel locomotive. Well, the diesel engineer, he's got what they call dynamic brakes, and he can put a load on that steam engine. And their comment between here and Los Angeles, where they store the locomotive, is that all you've got? And you see nothing but belching smoke, thundering noises as it goes through the station. My wife is not a train aficionado, but she spent one night down there with it when it left, and she still talks about that, and that's been 5 years ago. So if you're in town Sunday night after, again, the railroad has to authorize their movement, but after about 6 o'clock it will leave, and you'll see quite a sight going through town. The fire department has received calls because they think things are burning when this thing leaves town, but it's quite a sight to see. Thank you all.
That's great. Thanks so much. Okay, we'll go ahead and move into public comments, and this is the time that if you have something that you wish to discuss that does not appear on the agenda but is under our purview, you're welcome to come up and speak to us about that. Ms. City Clerk, how many speakers do we have?
We have 3 slips.
Okay, so if the 3 speakers could make their way to the podium, please.
I have the number 1.
Great. Then you are first.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. I want to pull item number 5 from the consent calendar.
Okay.
I'll note we have requests to pull item 4 and 5. So.
Okay. Okay, the next speaker, please. Mr. Package, will you please come up?
Good evening, Mayor Fitzgerald and City Council members. My name is Tony Package, and I have lived in Fullerton this month 12 years. Happy spring, my backyard.
Mr. Package, we can't hear you. Can you speak into the mic? Thank you.
Yes, I can. Good evening, Mayor Fitzgerald and City Council members. I am Tony Package, and I have lived in Fullerton for 12 years this month. Happy spring. My backyard is flourishing. My roses are soon into their second bloom. My pink trumpet trees was the best blooms ever. You know, they bloomed there early along with the city plants along harbor towards Imperial. I'm sure you've all seen those. They're just beautiful. My tomato plants, which I planted the first week in March, are now 3 feet tall. It's due to my rainwater, by the way. And my trees and plants in the back are blooming and appear healthy. All seem good when I view my garden. What I don't see and what bothers me are bees. I see one, I see two. I will need them to pollinate my veggies. And by the way, my water usage for January and February was 25% below 2013. So I'm taking my rainwater. Much better than the city of Fullerton. But back to bees. Part 1. You'll see me a lot on this. Colony collapse disorder, CD, is the phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a colony disappear and leave behind a queen, plenty of food, and a few nurse bees to care for the remaining immature bees and the queen. One out of every 3 bites of food we take relies on bees for pollination. Of 100 major crops, 70 are pollinated by bees, including apples, cucumbers, broccoli, onions, pumpkins, avocados, almonds, and so much more. But American bees are in crisis. These critical pollinators, are dying at some of the highest rates ever recorded. A whopping 42% of the U.S. bee colonies collapsed in 2015, well above the average 31% that have been dying each winter for nearly a decade. Their devastating decline is due to a large part to the skyrocketing use of dangerous pesticides called, I should have read this before, pesticides, unleashed by multinational chemical giants like Bayer, Monsanto. Bees are also suffering from the loss of wildflower habitat, rapidly spreading disease, and climate change. As a result, our hardworking pollinators are stressed out and even more susceptible to pesticide poisoning. And the future of America's food supply is left hanging in the balance. This is just part 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, and thank you for having us today. My name is Robert Kim, and I am the president of Good Hands for One, which is a local nonprofit dedicated to providing free tutoring for the underprivileged youth of Fullerton. These students seek assistance in mathematics and English, but for many, outside help is out of the question. On the other hand, we have eager high school students who are fully capable of instruction, looking for ways to improve the community. So we saw an opportunity to bridge the gap between student and tutor, granting the former an absolutely free resource for their benefit, and for the latter, a way to distinguish themselves and gain valuable experience.
What was the name of your organization again?
Good Hands for One.
Good
Hands for One.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joy Rue, and I'm the co-vice president of Good Hands for One. This summer, we'll be hosting our 3rd annual Good Hands for One awards ceremony, where we honor our students who participate in our math as well as our English program that we hold every summer. This previous year, we've had Young Kim's representative, Bob Huff's representative, as well as Greg Seaborn attend our awards ceremony. And for the past 2 years, we've hosted our summer English reading program, and I've had the opportunity to personally organize and oversee this program. This summer, we'll be resuming our English program at the Fullerton Public Library. It's for an hour and a half, multiple times per week, and we aim to provide a 1-to-1 student-to-tutor ratio. This summer English program lasts for about 10 weeks and will be followed promptly by our next annual Good Hands for One award ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anthony Kim. I'm from the Good Hands for One nonprofit organization. I'm the current other co-vice president. As my colleagues have stated, we are truly grateful to the Fullerton City Council for giving us the opportunity to empower the next generation of students by access to facilities such as the Fullerton Public Library. However, we would like to voice just one concern. As known, we have been affiliated with the Fullerton City Council and Fullerton City Public Library for 4 consecutive years, this upcoming year being the 5th. We would humbly like to request that we receive a stable access to the usage of the available rooms, which we have been tutoring in, to reiterate, for the past 4 years. In order to properly give the chance for Title I school students seeking further assistance in math and English to be tutored by our many volunteers, we would like to request a secure room that we could access throughout the year, with the exception of a few instances such as those with a higher priority than ourselves. Once again, we are humbled to have even been given the opportunity to even tutor and been given the facilities at the Fullerton Public Library to really empower the next generation of lawyers, doctors, or even teachers. But we would like to still request a stable room for the usage of our organization. And on behalf of the Good Hands for One board, parents, and volunteers, we thank you for your time and continued support.
Mr. Kim, before you leave, do you have a way for people to find out more about the organization and get involved?
Yes, we do have a website, or you can come to our Saturday sessions, which begins at 10:30 and ends at 12.
Will you tell us what your website is?
Was it? Because we use another.
So just say that into the microphone so everyone at home also knows.
Just Google Good Hands for One organization. That's Google Good Hands for One organization.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for what you do. And will you make sure the city clerk has your information, Mr. Kim, so we can contact you about your request, okay? Thanks. Next speaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Imbriano. I'm a Fullerton resident, and I also run the FullertonInformer.com website. Mr. Package touched on the bee issue. I've written extensively on that. You can look up the article called The End of the Birds and the Bees on the FullertonInformer.com. It ties in the connection to the neonicotinoid pesticides, interaction with wireless microwave emissions from the cellular infrastructure that's being erected all over the United States. The drunk driving issue in this town, shooting ducks in a barrel, is pretty profitable. I know that Love Fullerton's coming up, and I'd really like to see the churches, instead of washing police cars and cleaning schools and buildings that our tax money is supposed to take care of, I'd like to see the ruining of our youth with liquor be addressed, maybe even some protests, maybe slow down the progression of alcoholism and drunk driving in our community. I want to read a statement tonight from Barry Levinson, and I want to quote him. It is very simple. The rich, the powerful, and the political insiders do not need and certainly should not receive preferential treatment from our elected officials. This includes developers such as Malia Homes, the public employee unions, and even those that manage the Fullerton Golf Course. When any special interest group receives preferential treatment, it raises concern that those we elect to be our representatives better represent special interests that overwhelmingly live outside of Fullerton, not the people of Fullerton who just got them elected. One of the ways the concern for preferential treatment can be addressed is to make sure that each council member not only has no actual conflict of interest, but that they do not even have the appearance of a conflict of interest. However, Mayor Fitzgerald, for instance, has a built-in conflict of interest, which she voluntarily chose to create for herself by accepting a very high-level executive position as vice president with the public relations firm Kurt Pringle and Associates. Mayor Fitzgerald did this soon after she was first elected to the Fullerton City Council. Ms. Fitzgerald has voluntarily put herself in this position, which makes it extremely difficult for her to perform both jobs to the best of her ability. If she always does a good job as mayor, she may not always be serving Pringle and Associates, and if she always does a good job for Pringle and Associates, she can be compromised as mayor. I ask that the council tonight take the steps necessary to place on the April 19, 2016 council agenda a full and complete presentation concerning the relationship between the city and the management of the Fullerton Golf Course to explain, if possible, the inaccurate presentation and erroneous conclusions made by Ms. Alice Lawyer to the council on November 2, 2010 about the monetary benefits of the changing contract between the city and the American Golf Corporation. Barry Levinson, I have decided by the analysis before you a $4 to $5 million negative impact for the city taxpayers over a 20-year period, and any honest and transparent council would do no less than what I'm requesting here. That's the end of Mr. Levinson's quote. I presented Lucinda with the information that Mr. Levinson wanted read here tonight, and that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public speakers?
Yes, please. Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Jane Rands, and I wanted to remind you of a couple of really great events that are coming up at the Muckenthaler. This Thursday, April 7th, is sort of the annual Speakeasy. So it's featuring entertainment. Tickets are available online and at the door, and costumes are highly encouraged. It's a period event that goes along with the age of the building, the 1924 building. And then as well, coming up on Thursday, April 14th at 7:30 p.m. is the opening reception for Bum Jun Lee. His work today. It was just delivered from the port, imported from one of our sister cities in Korea, in Yongin, Korea. And you're very welcome to come. Nice refreshments. There's never any charge for the opening, so bring your families and have some fun. Thanks.
Thanks. Are there any other speakers under public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for City Council staff communications. Mr. City Manager, was there anything you needed to cover this evening?
Just to confirm, we will have the library staff get in touch with the Good Hands group, get that arranged.
Good, thanks. Mr. Chafee?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My wife and I were pleased to attend the St. Jude Medical Center Neighbors Helping Neighbors event. It was at the Summit House, and kudos to the owner of the Summit House who provided all the food and drink at no cost, and that allowed the charity, which helps people who cannot afford medical care, to raise probably about $100,000 in that single evening. I'd also like to extend kudos to the YWCA for their prom project. They provide dresses and other things to low-income schoolgirls so they could have a great time at a prom and afford certain kinds of dresses that they wouldn't otherwise afford, and that's a great service that's being provided. Many of the department stores provide their new material that's an overflow that they didn't sell, and so they got really good stuff at no cost. And then we have the annual All the Arts for All the Kids event coming up on Saturday at the Plaza. The proceeds go to helping fund arts in our school. Without this, we would be missing art in the elementary schools to a great extent. And the art that you see on the walls was a result of that effort. So, Mayor, I'm very glad to report on those items. And I know there are other things like Love Fullerton Day we've been talking about. I'll let someone else talk about the times. Thank you.
Great. Councilman Seaborn?
I just want to remind everyone to please download and use the My Fullerton app. Anytime you're out on a walk or bike ride or you see something that looks deficient, broken, not working, graffiti, whatever the case might be, take a picture of it with the My Fullerton app, send it in for a service request. It is the most efficient way to get something done in this city. Just over the last weekend, I took a walk and I must have made 50 requests, and of course, they're all anonymous, and all of them were addressed very quickly this week. So you have that power on your smartphone. I'd encourage you to use it.
Thanks. Councilman Whitaker?
Yes, I'd like to request item number 6 be pulled as well. And I'd be interested in a brief update on Laguna Lake, on the situation there. We're past at least an earlier proposed deadline for beginning the attempt at preventing leakage at the lake. So some information there would be helpful. Thanks.
Director Hoppy, do you want to go ahead and give a Laguna Lake update for us, please?
Yes, unfortunately, we do not have the bonds from the prime contractor yet. We're calling them about every other day now, and I just stepped it up to every day. Hopefully, as soon as we get them, it would be about probably a 3 or 4 day turnaround before they start the work, and I'll certainly keep everyone up to date. Mr. Ponzi calls me pretty regularly asking when we'll start. We're also going to use one of the drones that they're using for taking status shots of the Raymond grade separation, and the contractor management firm there said they come up and take some aerial shots when they're actually putting it in the lake. So I'll bring that to council one night and share it so you can see what's going on. Should be pretty interesting.
Great.
We'll, of course, let the airport know that there's a drone nearby.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Flory?
Well, I, for one, am very happy to see Mr. Ponzi here this evening. After reading in the newspaper about all the layoffs at the Register, I was wondering if we would see you this evening. I almost feel like you should be giving us a report about what's going on.
We lost 70 people almost, so
Yeah.
most of them are not. We lost about 6 or 7 in the newsroom. The others were all like advertising, sales, some executive members.
Oh, goodness.
Our former editor.
Yeah. It's a rough time for newspapers in the world, really, but particularly in the U.S. I do want to give kudos to our city manager, Joe Fells, who a week ago, Monday, did a presentation on infrastructure at the library for NUF. NUF standing for Neighbors United for Fullerton. I've had 3 reports. The conference it wasn't a conference, it's a monthly meeting, was well attended. There were 70 to 80 people there, and the 3 people that reported to me were very impressed with Joe's presentation and his grasp of the problem and his outlining what possible solutions for that are. And then I've got a question for Mr. Hoppy. The lot at the corner of Brea Boulevard and Marion Lemon, it looks dreadful. It is like the eastern entrance to our city. Any report on what's going on? And if there is no movement on what's going on with that, I'd like our city attorney to outline what the possibilities are to declaring it a nuisance. I get a lot of neighbor complaints about it.
I don't have a really good update because it's really private property. Jim Crane would be the one that could probably advise you where they are. I know that they haven't moved forward very much in terms of getting final approval of their revised plans.
Yeah.
They still have obligations from us in terms of putting a retaining wall at the bottom of the slope so that we have more sidewalk space, which you had requested previously, almost a couple of years ago now. But they probably spent $400,000. They've got $100,000 into what they now have to tear out, so they're $500,000 in, and they don't have anything except a dirt lot. So I don't know where they're going to go. They haven't talked to me. Mr. Fells may or may not have talked to them, but I don't know if you have, Joe. But
It's kind of incomprehensible to me that a property can exist like that at the entrance of a neighborhood, and I would like our city attorney to brief us on what action the city might take.
Code enforcement.
Well, where we begin is by analyzing what the problem is. I'm not familiar with the property itself.
No, I'm not suggesting you do it tonight, but maybe in a month.
We would certainly have somebody go out and review the property, and if there's a municipal code violation or a public nuisance, we can file with the court an order asking for it to clean it up.
I'd like that process to begin. The reason is that I recall there was a property on Rocky Road in Fullerton, and that situation went on for years. This has already gone on for 2.5 years, and it just doesn't seem to me that he should be able to, the owner of the property should be able to compromise the integrity of the neighborhood. So I would like that to be on the agenda in a month or so, an update as to what's happening. Is there any other support from the council on that? No? Not Mr. Chafee?
It's my neighborhood, but I don't see that injuring anyone. So it doesn't look good, but I don't see any injury coming out of it.
I bet you if you live next door to it, you would feel injured.
I'll provide a second on that, only because I believe that any council member that has an important issue needs to have the ability to have it aired. So
Thank you,
I'm happy to
Mr.
do that.
Whitaker.
Sure.
Did you have anything else, Ms. Flory?
No.
Okay. Director Hoppy?
I did want to add one thing since you were talking about Laguna Lake and Mr. Package mentioned how much he had saved. I thought I'd give you a quick update. As you recall, February we saved about 3.17% or something like that. For March, we saved overall at the city 21.59%, and you'll remember how hot it was in March. So the overall savings through June is 19.75, almost 20%.
That's great.
So very close to our 21 mandated by the state.
Good. So remind everyone when their watering schedule is, will you, please?
Your watering schedule is Saturday and Sunday only for your landscaping currently, and that I think runs out at the end of this month.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And then it's back to probably 2 days a week.
Great, thanks. I just have a couple things. We talked quite some time ago about beekeeping and exploring what that ordinance could look like in Fullerton to allow beekeeping. We don't now allow that. And Mr. Package and I have talked about that in the past. And so I wonder if there has been any research done on it, or how soon you think we could have a conversation about that.
We did provide, the Community Development Department provided the memo. I just had included it in a weekly report to the council. We'd be happy to bring that forward and start the conversation. That was primarily a comparison and a brief analysis of what other cities in the Southern California region were doing, but we'd be happy to bring that up, start the conversation, and get some direction from you on what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I'd like to have it agendized for a future meeting whenever you think it's good to put it into the schedule.
Okay.
Please, thanks. And then I also wanted to share that I had the pleasure of serving with the Meals on Wheels folks here in town through Senior Serve and our Assistance League, and it was a great morning getting to volunteer with other community volunteers to help senior citizens in town who can't get out to get their meals to do that. So I really applaud the Assistance League and Senior Serve for what they do. And I wanted to call your attention to two things happening this week. The first is the opening of the Fullerton Market. This is our 25th anniversary for the Fullerton Market, and so Thursday, April 7th, it'll open again for its 25th year, and it'll run through October 27th of this year. So this Thursday, we're also going to feature a green ribbon cutting ceremony at 6:15 to celebrate the new water-efficient fountains on the plaza. So we hope a lot of great families will show up so the kids can start enjoying those pop-ups again. The market used to end in the third week of April. It now extends all the way through the end of October. And just to give you a little history, the market began in the dirt lot, which is now the Plaza Park across from the museum, in 1991. The number of vendors has increased from an estimated 7 vendors to 56 this year. We have expanded to an average of 1,500 visitors to the market on average. And in 1999, the plaza and the fountains were built to accommodate the growing number of vendors and patrons. Commemorative buttons, like the one I am wearing today, and balloons will be handed out at the market on the 7th this week. And for the month of April, the Fender Band Series will feature crowd favorites like Kid Ramos and Friends, Bubba and the Big Bad Blues, and The Answer. Themed events throughout the 25th anniversary year include a Cinco de Mayo celebration, Summerfest, Superhero Night, which my kids will love, Dog Days, Fall Harvest, and Octoboo-fest. Octoboo-fest. Did I get that right? Okay. Halloween-themed event. So I hope you join us for the market this year. It's always a lot of fun. And then also this Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. on the plaza, is our Faces of Fullerton event, and it's a great family event with lots of activities for kids and a pancake breakfast. So we encourage you to join us for that. With that said, I will ask if there are any other, if the council has any other consent calendar items they want to pull. I have 4, 5, and 6 so far.
Move the balance.
Okay. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we'll go ahead and move to item number 4. Ms. City Clerk, can you just tell me right now who pulled 4 and who pulled 5?
4 was pulled by Joe Imbriano and David Curley.
Okay, and 5?
Number 5 was pulled by, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names, Gary Galano, Tressie Capps, Joe Imbriano, and David Curley.
Okay, and then item number 6 was pulled by Councilman Whitaker. Right. Okay, item number 4. Members of the public who wish to speak on this?
Mayor, could we move these items? They are now regular business items to the business calendar.
I think we're just going to take comments. We must take comments before we... Remember, we got in trouble the other day because we didn't take public comments on an item.
I'm saying we should have just when we should take them.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I think let's just get it done now. Mr. Curley?
Are we good to go? Okay. David Curley, this is the... Item 4 is the revised records retention schedule that was on the agenda a month ago. I think there's still many loose ends. Some additional explanations would be helpful on this. And part of my concern is with how the city retains databases. So if you have a database, by its nature, it's a living, breathing organism. So you can always update records, you can change them, you can delete them. And in this retention schedule, many of those databases have an indefinite retention period. And their definition of indefinite could be 1 day to forever. It's just not, there's no definite time period that it's retained. So you could have records that are purged much quicker than others. You could have records that are preserved forever. I think that's ambiguity is not real helpful when you have defined preservation periods for other records, like 5 years, 10 years, or permanent. There's just so much uncertainty there. Let's see. The other thing with having this stuff in the database, a lot of the reports that are generated from that database, it appears that the reports are being either eliminated or no longer generated. That's problematic if the database is purged, as they apparently want to do. The reports, I would think, again, if they're stored electronically, like the database, they shouldn't take up a whole lot of space, and it should be cheap to retain them. Likewise, I don't see a good reason for purging databases when they just take up disk space. I understand not holding on to the hardware. I mean, you don't want to have the equivalent of a Commodore 64 computer hanging around for decades to come, but you could have the database on disks or drives, and they take up relatively little space. In closing, I'm most concerned about the administrative services. There's audit records that they want to purge or reduce to 5-year. They were permanent status. They've been reduced to 5 years, sometimes less. An explanation from administrative services, I think, is appropriate in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Joan, excuse me, Joan Briano again. You know, this is 414 pages. It was actually half sideways on the attachment. That's 100 times the amount of verbiage in the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. I don't know why we're trying to hide behind the excuse of trying to save money and save space when every time I come to meetings I hear about how office space is becoming less expensive and storage is becoming less expensive. So in the interest of transparency, I don't see why we're doing any of this. The only thing I can think of as to why we're doing this is we got something to hide. That's my opinion. From the work and research of some community activists, it's evidently clear that I believe there are some issues, and that's why we're moving at light speed to lock everything down. This is a very defensive mode that you're putting the city's records in. And if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. I don't understand. You can go to Fry's and get hard drives, 5 terabytes for $150. They're stacked to the ceiling in that place, and this city is going through $20 million a month. And we have money, millions and millions of dollars for raises for people that make a darn good living as it is. And so I don't see any financial analysis clearly showing that the benefit to the taxpayer is outweighing the benefit to the taxpayer of the inherent transparency of the current system that we have. So anything to the contrary of leaving these things alone reeks of a conspiracy. That's my opinion. And I think, based on the fact that there's 414 pages here, and every one of these things has 10 lines on it with 10 links, and another 100 pages on each link or whatever, this thing's a rabbit hole, and I don't think anybody up on this dais is prepared to go along with this and make an educated vote on having this vetted already and having it good for the city of Fullerton. This city needs to have glass windows on everything it does, based on what it's done in the past and based on where it's heading. I'm here to tell you, folks, that this is a horrible idea, and if you vote for it, you'll be held accountable for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Seeing no more members of the public wishing to speak on this item, I'll bring it back to council. Do any council members have comments, or is there a motion?
Well, I've got a comment about it. This records and retention schedule is very, very routine. Just as you purge documents in your household, they also need to be purged at the city level. Just this morning, I finished my taxes, and I went into an old file cabinet, pulled all my tax returns back to 1997, but took all that extraneous material that was in those file folders taking up all that room and got rid of it. The records retention schedule was first developed in 2003. We have hired a consultant who has advised the city. The consultant's advice incorporates best business practices and new and existing laws pertaining to the retention of city records. The consultant has pointed out, and all of us are very much aware, as we matriculate through these various computer systems and operating systems, we have all experienced going through the big 6-inch floppy drives to the little 3.5-inch plastic hard disks to now everybody's walking around with a thumb drive in their purse or their pocket to access and save information. But one of the important things is that, as set forth in our agenda letter, since there is no way to determine how long a database will last, the schedule indicates this retention as indefinite. That makes perfect sense to me. I don't sense any conspiracy here at all. The point is made that once the software and hardware supporting the old system is no longer accessible, such as the former financial software system Monarch, the database is eliminated necessarily. The important point is that the retention periods of all the records in this schedule meet or exceed legal requirements, industry standards, and current business practice. So given that, I have no concern that the city is trying to hide records. Most of the records must be kept for a lengthy period of time, so I move the recommendation.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I second it. I'd like to make a comment or two. We currently have a record retention system. All this is doing is updating what we have. So to say that this is something new is not correct, because we already have it. This new schedule recognizes, among other things, the computerization that we have undertaken with our records. The old resolution didn't really deal with that very much. There are other issues besides the amount of storage space it takes up, like how do you retrieve something when you have so many volumes of it? What do you do to search for it? And so this helps become more efficient and save some cost in that respect. So I'm going to second the motion, and I support it.
Okay, thank you. Is there further discussion?
Yes. I continue to have concerns about the options that are allowed within this direction for record retention, including one recently that I felt very strongly about, where a city council session wasn't recorded. Our videos weren't working. The verbiage in this seems to indicate that it would be at the discretion of the city manager whether or not to record council meetings, a special or an off-site meeting, and I just don't think that's a good option at all. I believe all of our meetings need to be recorded, particularly because we took the step formally a few years ago to relax the details involved in the minutes of our meetings, with the assumption that the video record would be a more complete record of the meeting. So there are fine points such as that I really think aren't the way that they need to be as far as adoption of this. So I remain unsupportive of this at this point.
I do want to clarify that the special meeting that Councilman Whitaker is referring to, it wasn't that our cameras were not working. As Councilman Whitaker, I'm sure, knows, because he's the longest serving council member up here, our contract with the broadcasting states that we don't necessarily tape special meetings. So if that's something we want to change, then we need to change that. But that was a matter of a contract with our with the agency who tapes our meetings. So with that said, if Mr.
Madam
City
Mayor,
Manager?
could I just make a point that I believe what Councilmember Whitaker's referring to as item number 5 would be part of that discussion. As opposed to the record retention schedule, the videotaping is in the rules of procedure.
Great.
So just want to
Okay, thanks.
Right. One clarification before I leave on that, on the portion about council meetings. We're fortunate on the city website to be able to refer back a number of years for council meetings. This lists that really it'll be kept in current files for only 1 year. I don't know what that means. I don't know whether that's going to change the access that the public has now to, historical meetings or not.
Diane, why don't you come up if you have some input into the concerns that are being expressed?
Thank
and
you.
Introduce yourself for the
Thank
audience,
you.
please.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, my name is Diane Gladwell. I'm the city's records management consultant. I'm a former city clerk of both Glendale and San Luis Obispo. Over 21 years, I've had this business, and I've dealt with this in over 150 California cities. So all I do is records retention and records management in California cities. This schedule is fully within the law. It's up to date because there's many laws that have changed since 2003, and the city must stay current with the current law. In addition, it's in full compliance with best practices of other cities. There's nothing unique or different. The video tapes of all the council meetings are a permanent retention, so they will be retained permanently, as well as the minutes, resolutions, and ordinances of the council. And I'm available to answer any more questions.
Well, I do have a question based on that. On page CC15, it does indicate permanent storage, but inactive in office only 1 year. And that's what I was seeking clarification.
Okay, so that is not the publication on the website, which is a totally different thing. That's just that the video recording would be active in the city clerk's office for 1 year. But it's not going to be taken off the website. And the video will be retained permanently. So that does not indicate the length of the posting on the website. That's a totally different operational matter.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any further discussion?
Okay. Oh. Well, I would just say that if we don't adopt this resolution, then the current retention schedule remains. That retention schedule is not in compliance with the law. It's not nearly as open as this one is.
Thank you. Councilman Seaborn?
Yeah, just want some, I think for myself, just to clarify how I'm hearing this and what I've studied in this. First of all, the agenda item was a little confusing to me. There were 3 sets of the policy and the retention schedule, which had me flipping back and forth and a little cumbersome. Needless to say, after you look at what the proposed changes are, I don't see the same issues that I had seen before. I had met with the city clerk. I had met with David Curley. I felt that, for the most part, the questions were answered. I think there's a disconnect, though, in the discussion of database retention and what the database is. I see the database as a very fluid thing, and so data is constantly changing. And if you really want to retain that data, it's just a snapshot in time of what was there at that moment, because the data is always changing. So the indefinite period, I understand, I get it. I don't really like it, but I think there's other things that are probably more critical that we can address that really don't seem to be in here, and I discussed this earlier with our city clerk. One of it is, anytime we have a presentation by staff, 99% of the time that presentation is not part of our agenda letter. And so the presentation itself doesn't get entered into the minutes as part of the discussion and how we arrived at a decision that we arrived at. So I'd like to see either it be in the agenda, so whatever you're going to put up on the screen behind us is actually in the agenda well in advance. And if that's not possible, then amend the minutes later and add it into the minutes as part of the record with the actual file, so that if I go into the website, I can download it and I can see the exact presentation that the council looked at to be able to come up with their decision. I think that would be a big step in the right direction. The other part of that is, and it goes along the same lines, and that is all the forms and documents that come before us. I think those are the retention of those is probably more important than the database, because it's the forms that we use to arrive at our decision. In theory, the database is what drove that form, but it's the form that's in front of us. It's the set of numbers that we're looking at that really drives the discussion, and that set of numbers needs to be made part of the permanent record, which I think if we go along with this of making the presentation materials part of our record, I think it solves that problem. So I think by doing that, we can solve some of the database issues and still have a solid record of why we arrived at the decision that we did.
So, Ms. City Clerk, or maybe Diane, if you have any response to that, do the records from our City Council meeting on the website and the inclusion of presentations, is that possible to include in what we're talking about here, or should that be a separate item for us?
I'll address the retention. The agenda packet is permanent, so whatever goes into the agenda packet would be retained permanently. The process that the city follows to gather the presentation materials after the meeting to include the presentation would be the city clerk's procedures.
Right. So, Lucinda, could you address that, please?
We have a folder in our Laserfiche the online documents called Late Communications, I believe is what it's called, and it's where we put anything that we are handed from the public during the meeting, presentations, anything that happens basically in this room that's not part of the packet. And that is, once it's in the file, it's considered part of the official permanent packet.
Madam Mayor, if I might comment. At Orange County Water District, the PowerPoint presentations are always included as part of the agenda materials, and that makes it very, very useful. And I would be very supportive of Councilmember Seaborn's suggestion, because there are many times I'm more concerned about the staff presentations, because there are many times when we'll get a staff presentation and I'm flipping through the pages of the agenda trying to see if it jives with what the information that we've been given. But as I say, with Orange County Water District, we have an agenda letter, and then the PowerPoint presentation and all attachments are included in the package, and they are available online so that the public can access it prior to the meeting as well. And in becoming part of the permanent record, I think it's an assistance to not only us but the public as well. So,
okay, thanks. So what I would like to do is we have a motion and a second on this, and I would like to take a vote on the retention schedule, and then I'd like to ask that we have a separate discussion on the agenda packet and what is included in it, and whether or not we include the PowerPoint presentations. I think that might be a longer discussion. So if we can go ahead and take a vote on the motion in the second that's on the floor, that would be great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay. And then I would like to go ahead and I think that passed 3-2. Mm-hmm. So the retention schedule passes, and then I think that what I'm hearing from a majority of the council, and I agree, is that we should be able to see the PowerPoint presentations that are going to accompany the agenda packets. That should be a part of the agenda packet. And so I would ask the city manager to work on making that happen.
We got it.
Great. Okay, we'll go ahead and move to item number 5. This was pulled by a member of the public, so if members of the public would like to speak on item number 5, I'd invite you to come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I have something here that you've never been exposed to before. This is the United States Constitution. In the Bill of Rights of this Constitution, those are rights granted to us by the Creator, not people like you. The very first amendment of those Bill of Rights states that no law can be made abridging the freedom of speech. That's pretty powerful. No law. Think about that for a second. No law can be made abridging the freedom of speech. So that means any ordinances, resolutions, or codes that you make up are null and void, as they do not supersede the Constitution. Mayor Pro Tem Jan Flory, wow, you really are something else. You had quite the quote at the last meeting. You said, "I do recall many times in the past, though, that when people begin to repeat themselves and you are hearing the same thing over and over again, the mayor should have the ability to say the hearing is closed except for those who have something new to contribute." Then you went on to say that business is impeded by the fact that you've got 16 people getting up and saying the same thing over and over again. I think there needs to be some control with that. The presiding officer can limit debate as to what is repetitive or irrelevant. Excuse me, but who the hell do you think you are? What makes you think you have the right sitting up there to determine if what I have to say is irrelevant? I am American. I have every right to say what I have to say. Ms. Flory, it sounds like you don't want to be here, and you're not even looking up as I'm talking. What? So why don't you just get up and leave so I can address the rest of the council? You too, Mayor. As Americans, we have a right to filibuster this government. The Brown Act was put into place to prevent this from happening. But in America, you are allowed to fill up an entire room with people, have everyone speak, disallowing this body to conduct the people's business. There is no such thing as irrelevant speech. Why are you still here? You seem to not care about what we have to say. The reason why 16 people tell you the same thing is because you aren't doing what they say. They need to say it over and over again to get it into your thick skulls, and you have to sit through it. All of you are so disgusting to me. The fact that you would even consider this should be an arrestable offense. This is subversion. This is treason. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Molly McClanahan, Fullerton. Mayor and members of the City Council, I attended the March 15th council meeting, arriving at 7 p.m. My interests were the scheduled public hearings. The first 3 hours were devoted to questions of an administrative nature. These questions could have been resolved through reading the agenda letters or a request to staff for clarification the day prior to the meeting. There is also a reasonable possibility of placing consent items at the end of the agenda. The issues of broad public interest and impact were not taken up until after 9:30 p.m. that evening, including 3 advertised public hearings. That is not in the public interest. The public interest here is not to stifle comments or questions, but to place a higher priority on major public issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, David Curley. Following on what I talked about the last time, there's still some housekeeping issues that I think I would ask you to consider. First one is that the council chamber maximum capacity is 140 persons. Some of the seats back here are taken up by staff, and of course, you guys, I guess that would make the available seats to the public about 125, and that would be 1 seat for every 1,100 residents, which it's not very much, if you ask me. I want to talk about last week. I was impressed by this. The Planning Commission meeting, I guess they anticipated overflow from the Malia Homes proposal. And when we walked in the lobby, there were 2 rows of chairs set up. Both TVs were on, and it turns out that the chairs weren't even needed. We weren't even filled up in here. So why can't that sort of thing be added to these rules here? So you have at least minimal overflow seating for every meeting, whether it's needed or not. I mean, you can see tonight with the presentations in the beginning, there's no extra seats in here. I mean, it was packed. Every seat was packed, or every seat was taken. Otherwise, you get to a point where you have to decide who gets in and who doesn't. If there's 200 people that show up for a meeting, I guess it's just first come, first serve, and then everyone else is locked out. I don't think that's a very good way to go about things. Under item 5, it says the city manager will instruct staff to record audio and or video and or broadcast special and off-site meetings on an individual basis. Again, this should be something you guys decide for yourselves. I don't think it should be up to someone who's subordinate to you whether your meetings are recorded or broadcasted. It's really your call, not his. Finally, I see on the agenda forecast that this same set of rules or something similar to it will be proposed for the commissions. And I want to say, I think the commissions have a smart group of people. Why don't you let them make their own rules to some extent? They don't have to follow a strict procedure, and some of them are less formal anyway. So I would just encourage you, let them make their own rules so we don't have to go through this again in a month. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Tressie Capps. I am from Fontana. I'm an activist here in Southern California. I head up Toll-Free IE. We're a grassroots group in San Bernardino County trying to stop toll lanes in our county. There were many important meetings I could have attended tonight as an activist. My friends are at some meetings in Redlands, Huntington Park, in Ontario, but this is the meeting I needed to be at tonight. And the reason I say that is because of this item 5. I viewed footage that I consider to be tyrannical in nature from the previous city council meeting. Jan and Jennifer, my understanding is that you are both attorneys, which is astounding to me, astounding. Hopefully you've had time to reflect on your trampling of the First Amendment, and that tonight you will apologize to the public for your outrageous statements at the last council meeting. I mean, I've attended hundreds of council meetings, and I don't think I've ever heard such tyranny, ever. And let me tell you, in San Bernardino County, we have some major corruption out there, and I've dealt with some crazy things. But the words that came out of your mouth, Jan, you have inspired me to issue my first award. And this is a RIP award. I've never done this before, but I've sat in on these meetings, and you guys are always giving each other awards. So this is for you, Jan. This is a RIP award. Repetitive, irrelevant, and provocative. That is what your statements were at the last council meeting. So this award is for you. And so I'll give it to the city clerk so she can make it part of the public record. Congratulations, Jennifer. I can only give one award at this time, but you know, you went along with it too. You're an attorney. Shocking. So I really hope that you will address some of the statements that were made last night, because I drove all the way from Fontana and I'd like to hear an explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Sean Payton. I really liked that barn burner speech, but I did want to just say for the record,
we can't hear you, Sean.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
I did see that you removed some of the most egregious parts of the proposed ordinance, and I do appreciate that. And to the 4 members of the city council that agreed that the right to clap is, in fact, a right that all residents do have. So, Jennifer Fitzgerald, I still don't understand your position. And as it relates to you, I think the anger that you heard, I think, is entirely appropriate, because you're talking about censoring people, preventing them from speaking in a way to make people feel comfortable, which is anathema to free speech in a free society. But for the remaining 4 members of the City Council, I do appreciate that this is removed. I submitted a correspondence in advance of the prior hearing where I had some of the concerns with this item, and a few of my concerns are addressed, so I appreciate that. I assume that's going to be part of the record. I wanted to echo something Dave Curley mentioned. I was at the Planning Commission on Collegetown in February, and there was no overflow that was set up, and it was needed. And there should be a guarantee that I don't expect staff to set up overflow without knowing whether to anticipate it or not. But if there is a higher capacity crowd than anticipated, then there should be steps to make sure that people can hear what's going on. Because the video volume was very low, there were no seats. It was standing room only outside as well as inside. I think we were probably exceeding the requirements of the fire department, but I wasn't going to say anything at that point. So I would like to see the change that Curley suggested and the other changes in my correspondence. And it is disappointing that it even got as far as it did, but I am appreciative of the fact that, again, 4 members of the City Council did recognize that the right to clap and to otherwise verbalize themselves during a council meeting should be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mayor Fitzgerald, council members, city staff, city attorneys, Bob Hayden, Fullerton resident. Free speech is an important right that all of us have. But it doesn't mean we always get to say what we want when we may think we deserve to. Oh, okay. Okay. What I would encourage the council to consider echoes somewhat what Molly indicated, is that the public hearings that are listed on the agenda are public hearings for a reason. They're clearly made to the public so that these are matters that is going to be before the council and where public interest should be open and free. The agenda doesn't guarantee that consent items should bump those public hearing items. And I would encourage the council to certainly give everyone the right to speak on each item that they choose to speak on, but I would encourage the council to consider a procedural item of putting consent items that are pulled to the end of the public hearings. And that way it doesn't disenfranchise those that were anticipating a public hearing occurring and then finding themselves here at 11 o'clock at night because somebody or many people choose to pull every single item on the consent calendar for whatever reason. So I would encourage you to consider changing or adopting a procedure that indicates that consent items that are pulled would be moved to after all public hearing that are on the scheduled agenda occur. And I think that will be productive. It will also further ensure that everyone does have a right to speak and be heard on the matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to just support the comment that with the suggestion that was just made by this gentleman and by Molly earlier, that all items that are being pulled from the consent calendar be pushed to the back of the meeting and let the rest of the business move forward and get handled more expediently. It would be particularly nice if the discussion held by members of the public could be limited to issues at hand. And if we could minimize the unsubstantiated accusations, the not-so-veiled innuendos, and keep the conversation to the issues that are being presented rather than people's individual campaign speeches and tirades. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Council. And, thank you as well for removing the part that I had opposed last meeting. But now there's 3 people that have come up to speak and asking for something I'd like to highly encourage you not to do. And that is to move discussion on, I don't even know if that's a possibility, to move discussion on any consent calendar items for items that are pulled to the end of the calendar. And this is why. Quite often those items that get pulled are inappropriately on the consent calendar. I don't know what the standard is, but they're usually items that we're kind of like, you got to be kidding. And it gives the appearance to the public that there's the idea that, these you don't need to bother with, but we know to look at them because we've seen a number of those issues, such as this one that was on a consent calendar. And as well, then we can better judge really the length of that meeting, plan ahead as to how long, how many items are on that agenda, have people have a real feel for the depth, the potential time for that meeting. I believe the item that a couple of the speakers, Mr. Hayden and Molly came up here to speak about was about the Coyote Hills item that was pushed off. That was scheduled for very late in the night, and apparently the city manager was aware that it was going to go longer. It was put very far at the end of the agenda because Heather Stratmore was brought up to speak earlier and make comments, and then later, then the rest of the public was able to speak on that item. So I just think better planning would probably resolve that problem a lot better while keeping everybody involved and not having people have to wait too long for their items. And along those same lines, I would like to see a policy regarding moving items, because quite often there's an item that's later on the agenda. People say, okay, I can stay at home, I can eat dinner, or I can work late, I can come later for the item. When items get moved, they might miss them as well. When items are late in the agenda and people never know when they might be pulled earlier, they come here early and they sit. Again, on that Coyote Hills issue, we had at least 3 board members, I believe, that left before that item came up because they came here early, not knowing whether the item was going to get moved earlier, and sat through the entire meeting. Well, I shouldn't say the entire meeting. They just really couldn't stay past the 10 o'clock time. So anyways, just keeping that in mind for participation, that really scheduling well and keeping with that posted schedule is really, really important for keeping people engaged. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers from the public who would like to address this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring this back to council. We discussed this 2 weeks ago, and the staff gave us a document tonight that they thought outlined what we had asked them to last time. So I would ask the council, do you have further discussion on this item or any motions?
I'll move the recommendation, and then I'd like to comment, please.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I would like to change one of the items, and I have some comments as well.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and start us off then?
All right. Much has been said about overflow, and I remember meetings that not only were so large that the seating outside was not adequate. No one is kept out of being able to speak here. I've had, not when I was on the council, but we had one meeting where we even opened up one of the rooms in the library. And yes, we had TVs of live presentation going on. It's very important that those people who were over in the library, before we closed the item, had a chance to speak. And staff went over to make certain that anybody who was there were invited to come over here and speak. To say it's not like the doors are locked or anything. It's very fluid. There are fire regulations to how many should actually be in this building. But you can be outside and come in when it's your turn to speak. It's a matter of planning, and you don't always know what the interest in a given meeting is. If you know in advance, if you're clairvoyant enough, then yes, you can put out extra seating, and yes, you can provide for seating over in the library. The meeting is so large, I know some years ago we moved a meeting over to Plummer Auditorium, where many more people could be seated. So it's not like someone's being shut out or anything. It's how do you know how to accommodate everyone in a way that is fair so everyone has a chance to come up and speak. There's also an item of flexibility that needs to be under the jurisdiction of the mayor. If we find a large number of the audience is here for a particular item, then the mayor should have the flexibility of moving that item up on the agenda so we accommodate the most people. There are other ways of communicating. We do have some emails and letters that have been presented to us. Those will be part of the record, and we do read them. So it's not like that you need to speak to get your ideas out. There are other ways of doing that. Yes, it's effective if you do speak. Encourage people that have concerns to do that. So I think the rules are trying to be open and fair to accommodate the most people so that everyone can speak and to be cordial as we can. Not everyone's going to agree. There's always a time when, well, that's why we have a hearing. There's going to be disagreement. The item I'd like to change, if I can quickly find it, is on page 5 of the resolution. Be item 14D, the last sentence there. It indicates that regular business items and public hearing items shall have no more than 5 minutes. Our practice has been 3 minutes. The next item E, talks about allowing more time if that's requested, and we can do that. But it allows the most people, particularly when you have a large number of people of interest in a given item, so you don't run too late. I mean, people start leaving if it goes too late, to follow our practice of 3 minutes, but to allow more time in a given circumstance where that seems important. So I'd like to change that to 3 minutes. Otherwise, Jan, I do appreciate you, and yes, you are a character, but that's part of the appreciation.
Let's see. So I would say Jan had a motion on the floor, and Mr. Chafee, with that change, if she agrees to that change, would you want to second that motion?
I would ask if she would accept the proposed amendment, and if so, I would second the motion.
Yes, I would.
And I second the motion.
All right.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Let's continue on with further discussion. Councilman Whitaker?
Yes, my first point would be that even though we've had a practice of 3 minutes on agenda items sometimes, the actual number has been 5 minutes allowed per speaker on agendized items. The public comments has been 3 minutes. So that would be entertaining a significant change on that item. My primary concern about all of these changes, it's listed as amendment to the rules of procedure and decorum for city council meetings. And we've been operating under the existing rules since 4 years ago, and this is almost a complete redraft. I complained last time about the expansion of it, and the idea of creating additional rules where they don't appear to be that necessary does not appeal to me. So I do oppose the general expansion of this and to trying to expand rules to cover all manner of behavior, often which can be controlled more simply. I see a lack of elegance in what we're being presented with here, and I'd like to see a simpler and more usable set of rules. The idea of trying to all the inside baseball about how we're going to conduct our meetings, a great deal of discretion is granted to the presiding officer for council members on how to conduct meetings. So I think that's why this is kicking a hornet's nest of a sort, and I don't see where things will get much better by adopting this.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Seaborn.
There have been several revisions that were made to this from last time, and it is much better. As someone once said, some things are good from far and far from good, and I think this kind of falls into that category in some instances. I am a little concerned about changing the 5 minutes to 3 minutes for regular business and public hearing items. We have been in practice trying to go with 3 minutes, but plenty of times people have asked, hey, I thought it was 5 minutes. Can you give me more time? And it was not an issue. So I don't know. I would like to not see that change. One of the other things that has me a little concerned is the recording, the broadcast. And it says that city records the video. It's item 5 on page 2. The city records the video broadcast of all regular meetings, including the public portion of the closed session meeting of the city council held in the council chamber. The city manager will instruct staff to record audio and or video and or broadcast special and off-site meetings on an individual basis. My understanding is right now our agreement with, is it Time Warner? I don't know who the big conglomerate, media company is that is broadcasting us now. Seems like they keep changing. Anyways, my understanding was it wasn't in the agreement to have them do the special meetings, so I think maybe that needs to be revised and then just take off that last sentence, and if we have a special meeting, we'll have to call them and schedule it and pay for it, but I think that's probably well worth it. So many people, I think, rely on that recording as the record, even though the minutes are the official record of it. I think people can look at the video and infer from that a great deal of information that they don't get from the minutes. So I think that's a very significant change that needs to occur.
But I don't understand how you would change item 5.
Oh.
How would you have it read?
I would take off the last sentence and just state that broadcast to all meetings, including the public portion, so on and so forth. So delete the word regular and delete the last sentence.
Yeah, I would accept that amendment.
And I would as well.
All right. Great. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Could I make just one quick comment on the broadcast? Just to be clear, if we are off-site, we are not connected to our cable server, so we can record off-site, but we can't broadcast live. So
I think we need to figure out a way to do that. I mean, my 15-year-old son was able to do that in high school, and I got to think that there's a simple, easy way to do that.
there's probably a way to do it on the internet. I'm not sure about the cable, but we can definitely look into it.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem Flory, I think you had something else?
Yes, I did. I thought our last meeting at City Council was it wasn't actually that unusual a situation. It was a couple of people had hijacked the consent calendar, pulled virtually every item on that, which meant that the public, who had come for 3 specific items, didn't get their matters heard, and they were basically excluded from the conversation. To be specific, last City Council meeting, our last 3 items were a $5.2 million Hillcrest Park renovation. There were a lot of people here to address that. $7.2 million allocation of affordable housing bonds. We had a couple of developers that were in the audience for a miserable bunch of hours to listen to everything going on prior to that. We had West Coyote Hills, potentially a $19 to $22+ million issue. Long story short, we had $30 million in 3 important issues to discuss. And what did we end up spending all our time on? The consent calendar. So the people who pulled the consent calendar items went to the front of the line, and we sitting up here on the dais watched people begin to bleed off at 9:30, 9:45. People have kids, they've got jobs, they've got planes to catch the next morning, and 2 men who both are purportedly running for city council just took up all the oxygen in the room. That is the situation that I am trying to avoid, and for that reason, I would ask, and this is what I intended in my motion, that item number 15, specific to the consent calendar, that we add to the last sentence, in that event, speaking of when items are pulled. And we are very unusual in that this city allows members of the public to pull items on the consent calendar. Many other agencies and many other citizens do not allow the public to do that. But when that happens, I would like the last sentence on number 15 to read. In that event, the presiding officer will ask City Council to move the remainder of the consent calendar and then take up each item pulled from the consent calendar for individual consideration at the end of the regular agenda or regular business. That does not preclude those people from addressing those issues on the consent calendar that they wish to address. But one of the speakers 2 weeks ago said, well, if I have to fill out a speaker card and I don't know what I want to talk about, maybe I'll just have to fill out a speaker card and pull everything for every meeting. This council is not objecting to staying here late into the evening and listening to the public express their concerns and their opinions. What we do object to is that certain people are using the consent calendar to hijack this council meeting to the exclusion of other people who come here on a specific issue expecting to have their issue addressed. And I'd like to remind everybody that our council, that the policy and procedure set forth at the front of our agenda says that the public hearing will be limited to the first 30 minutes. We have never done that.
You mean the public comments?
I beg your pardon, the public comments. We often let the public comments go on for an hour, hour and a half. So this council, far from cutting off public comment, actually is trying to expedite and facilitate that public comment. So my motion will ask for that amendment to be made to number 15.
Okay, Mr. Chafee, you seconded that motion, so do you
you'll-
agree with that?
I agree, but let me be sure the language is what we're talking about. I would think that if you would add after the word consideration at the end of the agenda for regular business items, I think that's what you're talking about. Does that clarify it? And if that's it, then I do accept that amendment as the second.
Thank you.
I have a suggestion based on all this input. What about just having the public hearing be the first thing, then have regular business, and then put the consent calendar at the end? Just essentially reverse the entire thing. The public hearings seem to be the ones that are the most necessary for public engagement. That's why they are a hearing. And if we put it at the beginning, it gives a little more certainty to the hour for people that want to participate. Then the regular business can be near the.
Yes, and I had considered that as well, but one of my friends had suggested when we were talking about this that since the approval of the minutes is included in the consent calendar, sometimes that needs to be dealt with before, but I didn't see that as much of a problem. So
Yeah, I don't know if there's a legal reason why we'd need to do that or not, but I can't envision one.
No, all right. I would support moving the entire consent calendar to the end then.
There's actually a third option on this, is to have many fewer consent items. I note on our agenda tonight that we have 13 items, and only the last 3 are regular business items. So the first 10 are consent. And often we will have a routine item as a regular agenda item, and the council dispenses with that rather quickly. What that would allow you to do, if you were keeping them all as, or mostly all as regular items, you could have minutes on consent. But if you had the other items as regular agenda items, then you could structure the agenda in a way that accomplishes what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion on the floor, so that we all understand it, includes in it the deletion of the last sentence in item number 5, as well as the word regular. It also includes a move on page 5 in the last paragraph of item D, change the word 5 to 3. And then in item 15, the consent calendar, it would be changed to say the agenda shall have routine matters grouped together for action at the end of regular business, listed under the heading of consent calendar.
Yes.
Okay. And Doug, you seconded the original motion.
Yes, I'm not sure I'm following the last item in reading.
So Councilman Seaborn's suggestion, which Jan agreed to, was that item 15, instead of adding to the last sentence at the end of the agenda for regular business items, we would instead flip the consent calendar to come, the entire consent calendar to come after regular business.
Right.
So it would be the last item on the agenda.
Right. We would start with presentations, then we would go to public hearings, and then regular business, and then consent calendar.
Okay, I think I agree to that, but in looking at the language right now, it doesn't actually say where the consent calendar should go.
Correct. So in item 15, the change would be the agenda shall have routine matters grouped together for action at the end of regular business, listed under the heading of consent calendar. So you would change at the beginning of the meeting to at the end of regular business.
After.
Okay, I agree with that.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, for clarification, if we could make that and striking beginning of the meeting, putting after regular business,
yes,
and then removing the last sentence of the paragraph.
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't need to remove the last sentence of the paragraph as it stands, but you wouldn't be adding anything onto it either. So my suggested addition is not necessary now.
Because we still have to take pulled consent calendar items up for individual consideration.
Understood. Okay.
So we can still leave it in.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a motion and a second. And if there's no further discussion, we'll move to a vote on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion passes 3-2, and we will move on to item number 6, which I believe was pulled by Councilman Whitaker.
Yes, and I suppose that I should feel guilty for pulling a consent item. But I felt that this item did deserve a little bit more play. This is, it's a blast from the past, really. If we go back a little over 20 years ago, the Orange County bankruptcy, there was developed a plan at that time to help the county emerge from bankruptcy to import trash into the landfills in Orange County, to receive revenue from outside entities for depositing their trash in our county. Now, back then, I thought that was not a really wise idea, considering that Orange County is geographically so much smaller than our neighbors, and that our landfills are a mutual resource for all the cities in the county to be able to utilize up to the point where they need to be closed, where they're fully utilized. And importing trash into our county accelerates the demise of an asset that we all have and share publicly. So I made my concerns about that some 20 years ago, but now as I went through this agenda item, this is talking about revenue sharing from a 5-year extension of that plan, the Cash for Trash plan, which allows, on the basis of population, all the Orange County cities to share in some of the additional revenue for extending the term another 5 years. What's interesting about it to me is the reason doesn't seem to be about utilizing capacity in a rational way, but it's the fact that so much of our recycling activities have reduced the amount of waste going into our landfills, that now there's a revenue, there's an income problem, an income issue. So I had a couple questions. I wasn't sure who the appropriate staff person is on this item.
I'd be happy to answer the questions. Ramona Castaneda has been managing this. It's also been at every city, but I'm somewhat familiar with it and can try to answer the questions. If not, we'll bring the item back if you'd like.
On page 7, it indicates that Fullerton's share on this would be $221,271 for 5 years, I presume. But it's headed, it says allocation of initial payment. Does this mean there will be additional payments?
Yes, that is just the initial payment is based on what the known payment that's been negotiated, and that is our percentage share for the first year. There is a projection for a revenue share following in the following 4 years of the term. That number has not been announced because it's 50% of remainder, but it's based on the importage of the trash. So it's an unknown number, but we anticipate it to be close to that, and somewhat it's been projected that would grow slightly over the course of the 4 years.
Well, I quote from our agenda item here. It says, with the success of waste diversion and recycling in recent years, combined with slow recovery from the recent recession, the resulting effect has caused in-county waste generation to dramatically decrease, which in turn have created reduction in revenues. A committee of city managers participated to address the reduction in revenues. So my question would be, aren't there variable costs involved here? I mean, as activities at the landfills are reduced, do not a substantial amount of the costs reduce as well?
I believe that's correct. It would be initially each year the revenues and the imported trash would be measured by the county and those cities that are the host cities, with Brea, Irvine, and Orange. And on a population basis, the remaining cities would share in the revenues for the 4-year period.
Well, and this is about rates as well.
That is correct.
Right. I mean, I just got done, as did many other city council members, really putting pressure on the city of Irvine, who was the only city out of 34 to not have approved the previous agreement. And one city not approving means that this can't go forward in our county, and all of our rates go up exponentially. So I would go ahead and move this item.
I'll second it.
We need the public maybe to weigh in if they have anybody.
Yep, absolutely. And Mr. Whitaker, I didn't want to cut you off if you had other questions or concerns.
Well, I do have concerns, again, with really the general nature of this, that it appears to be maintaining certain capabilities at the waste disposal, even though we're having dramatic reduction in the activity in the storage there. So, and I understand what you're saying about rates, but at least in the near term, this council allowed or approved an extended negotiation of our trash hauling rates in the city, correct? So we could be affected by that even during this contract?
Yes. Because the tipping, the rates also, the rates that Fullerton taxpayers pay are also affected by the reset every year of the tipping charges and the fees at the dump, which could go up. That's the short story.
Wow. The reason I called attention to it is I do believe the public needs to understand, and we need to press for efficiencies in the way that this is occurring. But it wasn't my intent to try to block this. I just wanted to discuss it.
Okay. Are there members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? We'll go ahead and open it up now. If there aren't any, I'll bring it back to council. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And that passes unanimously. Okay, I think that takes us to the end of our consent calendar. And there are no public hearings tonight. We'll move to item number 11, which is under regular business, and it has to do with recommendations for existing film and photography permit program, and it comes from our Economic Development Commission. So Nicole Bernard is going to do a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nicole Bernard, Assistant to the City Manager, Economic Development Manager. Give me just a moment here to get a very brief PowerPoint up.
Beyond this chamber. Okay. And that's kind of what I was getting. And I was thinking, okay, so the solution is what then? Is discussion with the council.
We're back. Thank you. So just a quick introduction of this item. If you'll recall, back in November, the council directed the EDC to review our existing film and photography permit program, which includes an ordinance in our municipal code. And the idea there was to look at what opportunity there was for increasing filming activity as a means to increase economic development. And we also wanted to look at that very carefully to make sure that we balanced whatever impacts there might be for on-site location, and also to look carefully at streamlining the process to make it more user-friendly. So we have tonight with us, after my presentation, which will kind of take us a little bit through the background and the research that we did, we have here with us Donna Washington, who's the Vice President of Operations for Film LA, and that will all make sense in just a moment. So back in 1990, the city of Fullerton took proactive steps to adopt the original model film ordinance put forward by the State of California Film Commission. And since then, we've been humming along happily, issuing around 65 permits a year. And about 25% of those are for student film projects. Fullerton is fortunate to be within what is called the studio zone, which is a 30-mile radius from LA, which sets the per diem rates for the film crews. And the filming done within that zone, the studio zone, is a more cost-effective rate for the production costs for the crews. So we have a very significant part of Fullerton that's a part of that zone, which is very beneficial. It's quite a competitive advantage for attracting film. So the opportunity that the council and the EDC recognized with looking at the film ordinance and the processing of applications was the opportunity to utilize the city's assets for economic benefit, to leverage our geographic area within the studio zone, the opportunity to increase efficiency while staff is processing the film permit applications, and implementing the film program, whether that's through marketing or the community outreach that's really necessary to have a positive filming activity environment for both the film industry and for our community. Also, we wanted to make sure that we were really utilizing our opportunity, with the assets that we have here in Fullerton, to attract the high quality filming that would actually generate real significant economic activity, revenue, direct or indirect for the city. And to make sure that we were leveraging the economic resources at the county, which Orange County does have a film commission, and we have a wonderful relationship with Janice Arrington, who is our Orange County Film Commissioner. She serves as a great liaison, helping us understand the filming industry and to utilize the resources at the county and state level for attracting filming, the kind of filming that we're talking about, which would actually have some economic benefit to the community. So there's many programs. Filming is a hot topic right now, keeping the filming in LA instead of having it go out to other states. So there's a lot of opportunities that we could be better leveraging if we had a little bit more robust and updated film permit program. The discussion that we've been having at EDC actually predated our November council meeting. So we already had a little bit of a jump start on the research and the analysis that we were doing, best practices for other communities with robust and successful film permit programs. We also looked at how those programs were really finding the right sweet spot between significant filming activity and impacts to the communities, the neighbors, whether it's residential or in the business community or traffic situations. How were they able to make that all work together? And we also had, fortunately, some community members that are experienced not only in the film industry, but also have been in neighborhoods in Fullerton where filming activity occurred and could kind of educate the EDC on both sides of the situation of filming. And they led us to Film LA. It was their suggestion that we talk to Film LA and find out how we might partner with them to help us update our ordinance and streamline our permit process. And that is how we arrived at our conclusion, which tonight is a recommendation to partner with Film LA for an 18-month pilot program in which Film LA would guide us through the final proposed updates to our ordinance. So we would be returning back to council in a couple of months with those updates, and then also to begin implementing and streamlining our permit process application. So Film LA would really be doing all of the legwork for our permit application process for staff. The city would be retaining all of the approvals, so they would be enforcing our regulations. And this all comes at a too good to be true price of nothing to the city of Fullerton. So it is really a win-win situation for the city, for the community, and for the filming industry. So with that, I would love to introduce Donna Washington and allow her to give a quick presentation about the services and the partnership that they provide. If council's
Great,
pleasure.
thank you. Yes, Ms. Washington?
So I'll pull up your presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Donna Washington, Vice President of Operations at Film LA. I have Jody Strong, Director of Production Planning with me, and Rosanna from our IT department. I guess I didn't need you, Rosanna. I'm just going to move on real quickly. Just to give you a little bit of background about us, we've been in business for over 20 years. We were formed in 1995 through the joint action of the mayor at the time. He combined the city and county film offices to form Film LA. At that time, we were called EIDC. We are under contract to coordinate and release permits for 20 jurisdictions, including one county, LA County, LA City, 13 cities, and 7 school districts, including one U.S. national forest. And oftentimes, the industry sees us as a crucial link between the communities we serve and the industry. our experience, we have issued or have done basically 880,000 permitted days on location permitting, or film permitting. That's 150 permits for our industry customers, and we have processed over several thousand license agreements for school districts.
Is that since 1995, since you organized?
Yes.
Okay.
So our core services for you, we have a production planning group, which Jody actually heads up, and it's for the industry. So when you're a location manager on location, you need information right away. So you can call our office, get a hold of folks in production planning, and they could give you information about rates, conditions, restrictions, guidelines. They could also help you find locations. And they handle what we call local scout, which I will talk about a little bit later on. We have 13 coordinators in our office that handle film permits. They basically get the information from production companies and coordinate with our contacts in cities to get the approvals necessary to release the film permit. We will collect fees, so use fees, service fees, and basically handle all the accounting for you. We also have a group of folks called Film LA monitors. And so if you have sensitive locations, for instance, and you need a pair of eyes out there that's unaffiliated with the production company, we can provide you with people that are trained by us and report to us. You usually get there an hour before the company comes in, and they're gone an hour after the company leaves.
So, Ms. Washington, if I could interrupt for just a second.
Sure.
So I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, because we've had many complaints in the past from a certain neighborhood in town. And so that would be an instance where we could use those
monitors,
right?
Yes, and actually
Okay.
that's how it all started
Yeah.
for us. LA City has quite a few residential areas that are very popular for filming.
Right.
We have an area called Hancock Park, Winter Square area. We have a whole set of guidelines. We would tell the companies what the guidelines were, and they would always violate them. And so eventually the city said, what can you do to help us with this? And we came up with a monitor program. And it's been in place for 16 years now. And I think the monitors range in experience from a few years to almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Have you had a quantifiable drop then in complaints from those neighborhoods?
Actually, it's really funny because now people look for our monitors.
Right.
When they come in, when the productions are coming in, or when they get a notification, they're like, can you tell us who the monitor is going to be in case I need to talk to that person? So yeah, actually it has helped.
Good.
And actually I think it keeps those areas open for filming.
Great.
We also, under contract, would handle notifications. So we have uniform standard notification that is done by a group of people in our office. And I have an example of it, but if you want to see one. But basically, it looks like kind of like what you find on like a pizza delivery service. It's neon blue, and actually here it'd be neon orange. This is notification on one side. On the back side, it has all the information from the production company, including our information. So we are 24/7, just so you know. 365 days a year, we're all on call. So the benefits to the city. As Nicole mentioned, you retain approval. So the permits we coordinate are yours. They're not ours. We will do all the legwork. We will handle all the complaints. We will, do all the paperwork. And actually, there is no real paperwork because we have an online permitting system, by the way, which goes to my second point. We want to be green. So we have a system where location managers and production people apply for permits online. I had a location manager when I went out to a location recently, when I asked to see his film permit, because you're supposed to have it with you, he pulled out his phone and said, here it is. So it's great. It's potential to actually increase resources because production people are working with us every single day because we do handle such a large city and county and 12 other jurisdictions, including Santa Monica and Newport Beach. Folks are used to dealing with us. Members of our board are in the industry, so we're constantly talking about our jurisdictions. You have the potential to eliminate bad debt, so if you ever have problems with collecting fees from companies, you don't have to worry about that because we're going to collect the fees. You will always get paid by us, and that's our guaranteed. You also will, because dealing with Film LA and people, we've been around for such a long time, people already know about us, and we are film friendly. So by association, if you work with us, most people will see that you're film friendly. But Fullerton already has a reputation for being film friendly. As I mentioned before, we have a local scout, which basically is a digital location library that location managers use to find locations. And all it is basically client jurisdiction's property that we list on the Location Scout. If you get a chance to take a look at it, it's www.locoscout.com. And it works like Realtor.com, where you basically plug in what you want. So if you want an auditorium, it'll pull up all auditoriums that we have for all our client jurisdictions. It's a really good resource for location managers because they just don't have the time to get out on location and find locations like they used to. Which, by the way, that's what it looks like on the screen. I don't know if you can see it.
So you're paid by the industry then?
Yes, we actually collect an application fee when we coordinate permits. And so if you're a filmmaker, you come apply for your film permit. It's $625, and what you get is 10 locations that can cover a 2-week span of time. So if you're filming in LA City, LA County, Newport Beach, Santa Monica, Palmdale, Lancaster, any of the areas that we cover, you could put your locations on that one film permit.
And if you provide monitors, then they pass
pay
that
for it
through you. Okay.
Let's see. And so in terms of our relationship with Fullerton, how it benefits the industry, there's quick answers to production company questions. As I mentioned, we have the streamlined permitting system called OPS. Basically, if they know they're coming to us, they know that we're going to handle all the jurisdictions that we handle, or we're going to give them all the information about what they need to do, how to do it, and it's streamlined. That's it for me. So if you have questions, I'm here to answer questions. Jody's here too.
Thank you so much. Do council members have any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker?
I note that the city that you're currently under contract with in Orange County, the only other one is Newport Beach.
Correct.
How long has that relationship been in place?
Over a year. Almost 2 years.
Okay, good. That's I guess we don't have a long track record there.
Not yet. They were new to us.
I'm a little bit intrigued because in one way it appears as though you provide concierge type service.
We do.
But you're also in effect a gatekeeper, right?
Correct.
In other words, you would be the sole point of contact for anyone seeking to conduct these activities within our city, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Okay, great. Ms. Washington, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and open this item to members of the public. If you wish to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. Mr. Seaborn.
I just want to say thank you to Economic Development Committee and to Film LA and to all the different parties that took part in this long discussion's been going on for really probably a year or more. About filming in Fullerton, how to do it better, how to do it smarter, how to monetize it better for the community and manage it. I appreciate all the hard work. I'm excited about this. I've heard a lot of good things about Film LA, that it is a one-stop shop and it makes it easy for production companies to move into an area and be able to do what they do, and a lot of good stuff. So I look forward to this trial balloon, and we'll hope for the best.
Great. Is that a motion?
Indeed it is.
Second.
And the motion would be?
You're going to make me read the whole thing. I move to authorize city manager or designee to execute agreements and amendments with Film LA in a form approved by the city attorney. And there was a second for that?
Yes, I second that.
Okay. And there's a second portion of that. Direct staff to return to City Council with proposed revisions to the city's film photography ordinance as soon as possible within 6 months.
I also second that.
Thanks so much. So it's been moved and seconded. And Mayor Pro Tem Flory or Mr. Whitaker, did you have additional comments?
Nope. I'm just excited about it. And I also thank our Economic Development Commission and our Economic Development Director. Thank you very much for bringing this to us. I know this is the end of a long process, and I'm very supportive of it.
That's great.
My question would involve, in the presentation, Nicole, I think you had a statistic up there. I didn't note which year it was, but 65 in the city of Fullerton. What year was that for?
I was saying that in 1990, we adopted the first model film ordinance from the State of California Film Commission. Mm-hmm. The 65 was in reference to the approximate number of film permits that we issue annually.
And it said about a fourth of those were student activities.
That's
right?
correct.
The student activities wouldn't be under this umbrella?
They would be.
Oh, they would be?
Yes.
Okay,
But
interesting.
they don't pay.
It is a reduced rate.
Okay.
The reason that I'm asking is I'm certain that, one of the interests that the city council would have is seeing effective management of this activity and to reduce, interference in neighborhoods for the most part. But the other metric I would hope would be a goal to increase those activities even without causing disruption. So
Absolutely.
to me, the metrics, the year-to-year metrics and what we might be aiming at in terms of increasing activity, those would be important numbers. Maybe I missed them, whether they're contained here or not.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long will it take to, under this new agreement, to double our film permits each year?
Oh, I think that's a challenge. Not long at all.
Okay, that's great.
No, I think we're going to see a significant increase because, as Donna was talking about, they're so ingrained in the industry. They attend all the film festivals. They're very dialed in with all of the independent filmmakers and the mainstream, large corporate filmmakers. So having easy access to Fullerton through Film LA will absolutely increase our activity. So it's going to be fun.
Great. And then I think to Councilman Whitaker's question, I would assume that part of your role will be to continue to track the metrics of how those permits increase.
Actually,
over time.
part of the service that's provided by Film LA is regular reporting. I believe it's quarterly reporting. So, yeah, we can
Wonderful.
definitely provide that information to the council so we can start tracking things and celebrating immediately.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. I too, thank you for being here. I am excited about what the Economic Development Commission has done. This is our second meeting and within the span of about a month that we've adopted recommendations from our Economic Development Commission. So I really appreciate the work that all those business professionals are doing here. And so with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you again so much for being here tonight. Appreciate you hanging in with us. We'll go ahead and move to item 12. And our Director of Human Resources, Gretchen Beatty, has a presentation on this.
Good evening, Mayor Fitzgerald and members of council. Gretchen Beatty, Director of Human Resources. I have this evening the last two items on your agenda that are somewhat related to each other and will look somewhat familiar as well, as they are part of a series of tentative agreements that we've been bringing to you for approval under our new ordinance regarding labor negotiations. The first of these two items is a tentative agreement for a memorandum of agreement with the Fullerton Management Association. This is an association representing about 45 employees in non-sworn management positions throughout the city of Fullerton. Very briefly, this first slide shows you a brief history of bargaining with this unit that looks very much like what we looked at before. We had pay cuts in 2008 through 2011. We had 5% pay cuts that were exchanged for furlough time of an equivalent amount. That helped to reduce the budget in those years. In 11, 12, and 12, 13, we exchanged those pay cuts for 7% contributions to the CalPERS liabilities. And in conjunction with that, we restored the operating hours. So the furlough times that went with the pay cuts came back, and now we're back at full operating hours. This helped to further reduce the budget and increase the operating hours for the public. And then in 13-14 and 14-15, we didn't have concessions. We didn't have any salary increases, but we did have limited rebates during those years that for the management group cost about $116,000. This unit, like the Federation or the FMEF, which is the unit that represents the most employees, the general employees throughout the city, our lead negotiator for this unit was Francis Rogers. And we began meeting with the group in June 2015. At the same time, we were meeting with the Federation. but at the request of the group, we put them on the back burner for a while we concluded with the Federation, and then we picked back up a couple months ago, and throughout the last several months have had an exchange of proposals between the city and the unit. And following the provisions of the ordinance, those rejected proposals throughout the negotiations were appropriately posted on the website. We did reach a tentative agreement with this group, which was posted on the website a week ago. And tonight we're looking at the tentative agreement on a first review, and then we'll bring it back in 2 weeks for your final consideration. The terms of the agreement, are similar to the terms that you've seen before. We have a 4-year agreement from July 1, 2015 through June 30, 2019. We have a period of time that will begin our successor negotiations for the next agreement, but it won't be until 2019. We have across-the-board increases that are the same as what we saw for the FMEF. That would be 4% in the current fiscal year, 1.5% for each of the next 2 fiscal years, and 3% the final year of the agreement. The cost increases that are related to this proposal, that's the impact of the financial terms of this agreement, are listed in this first column down here, ranging from $173,407 the first year to $447,636 the final year of the agreement. As we've discussed in the past, there are other increases that are associated with this agreement that are not directly attributable to the changes we negotiated. These are listed in the second column here. The first is as budgeted the first year, but going forward, as we're looking at PERS cost increases primarily, we have increases up to $981,000 in the final year of the agreement.
And Gretchen, this is for 43 management positions, correct?
Approximately 43, yes. Okay. And the grand total of all of these changes is about $1.5 million for the 4-year term. Somewhat different than you'll see in this agreement than what we saw before. We had a pre-existing side letter that implemented a deputy director assignment pay. We've now rolled that into this agreement. We also have some update to language regarding the regional accreditation of educational institutions. This isn't a significant change, it's just a change to update appropriate language. We have the changes to the CalPERS language that we've seen in the prior agreements. These are the ones that are formally adopting or formalizing the changes that were actually negotiated back in 2011, and the changes that were put into place 2012, and then the impacts of the legislation that was passed by the state in 2013. And the additional item in this agreement that's different than the prior agreements, this unit is comprised of management employees who are under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, are exempt. They are not entitled to overtime. But we have a couple employees in this group who routinely work on the city-recognized holidays to produce city events, those being the 4th of July event and the First Night event. So what we have provided for in this agreement is if there is an employee in this group that's either producing the events on those 2 nights, those 2 events, the 4th of July or the First Night event, or an employee who is managing a city facility that's open for a private event, a private party that has rented the facilities on the same nights of these events, then they would have a little extra provision for pay that would be at a 1.5 times rate for any hours that are above and beyond their regular scheduled hours. The medical insurance changes that we have in this tentative agreement are the same as what you saw for the Federation and the Police Officers Association, which included reduced benefit levels for 2016 and the reopener for 2017 and beyond, as well as some discretion to reopen to comply with the Affordable Care Act. And we made some updates to sick leave language to comply with current law. Other than that, the changes in the tentative agreement are the miscellaneous deletions of outdated language or amendments to improve clarity or conformity with existing law. We also have with this agreement, we will bring back with you for final consideration some changes to our personnel management system that we came across as necessary when we were wrapping up this agreement. One is to delete the redevelopment manager classification that will no longer be used in the city, and the other is to place a couple of the salary ranges that are applicable to this unit in an inactive status. Those are the ones at the very bottom of the ranges for this group. There are no positions that are currently assigned to those ranges, and there's some changes that we're anticipating coming about under the Fair Labor Standards Act that will complicate use of those ranges because they will push the positions that are assigned to those ranges as into a non-exempt or a non-exempt status, which is something that we don't want to have to happen in this unit. So with that, I'll take any questions on the tentative agreement with the Management Association.
Are there questions from council on this first reading?
I suppose so, yes. I just wanted to at least get on the public record. This concept, one that I have had difficulty with, is now paying overtime and overtime rates to management level, salaried management level positions, is one that I'm concerned about as a precedent. Has this been done in the past at all in any of our agreements?
We have an agreement, a provision in the Police Management Association that provides very limited overtime pay or additional compensation for some additional assignments for that group. But it's like this one, it's a very small exposure.
And how long has that been in place for the police group?
That came about with the last agreement.
Okay. So this really is a new approach, really.
It's a fairly new approach, yes. Yeah. And it's not a full exposure to all time worked on those days. It's just for those hours worked above and beyond their normal work schedule. Pardon me for my cough.
At least for now, that's the structure, yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
Good, thanks. Okay, thanks, Gretchen, very much. Members of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please go ahead and come forward.
Good evening, David Curley. I have a concern with the section, if you can go to page 29 of this agreement. It's talking about drug and illegal drug and alcohol use, and it sort of caught my attention that tobacco is outright forbidden. It's explicitly forbidden, in fact, but that's not the case with alcohol and illegal drug use. I'm just going to read for the people who don't have this sheet. I'm just going to read the paragraph on that. It is in the best interest of the city, the association, affected employees, and the public to ensure that affected employees do not appear for work under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or possess illegal substances or alcohol while at work, because such conduct is likely to result in reduced productivity, an unsafe working environment, poor morale, and increased potential liability to the city. Under the influence of drugs means the use of any illegal substance or misuse of a prescribed drug in a manner and to a degree that impairs the employee's work performance or ability to use city property or equipment safely. Nowhere in there does it explicitly say you can't use it. It just more or less discourages it. There's no consequences listed. In fact, Part D says the city may compel an employee who is unable to perform the duties of his or her position to submit to a medical examination on the city time and at the city expense. So I'm not seeing where there's any consequence for showing up to work under the influence of something they shouldn't be. And this is actually the same wording has been used in other agreements you guys have approved. I'd like to hear some clarification on that, why there's a discrepancy there with, I mean, it's very strongly against tobacco, but It's not across the board. So if someone could clarify that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Sean Payton. One quick point, and I want to echo what Councilman Whitaker was talking about.
We can't hear you, Mr.
Sorry,
Payton. If you want to.
this better. If we're doing something new, if we're going to talk about overtime for management level positions, this is something we've not done before. This is something that should be as part of a package. If there's something that the city needs, we have, I hate to be a broken record on this, but we have a very large unfunded pension liability that has to be addressed. And if there's something here that public employees want, then it seems to me that this should be something we hold off on until we get something in return that would help put us on better footing long term regarding our pension liabilities. And the 2012 agreement I don't think counts because that's something that's already been implemented and has been in effect for the last 4 years. So I would suggest this be pulled out and saved for a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council, and I would go ahead and move to receive and file the tentative agreement for the first review.
I'll second that.
And under further discussion, Mr. Chafee, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, not at this reading. I don't.
Okay. Mr. Seaborn?
Actually, at this time, I'm going to refrain. I'll save it for the final reading.
Final reading, okay. Yep.
Ms. Beatty, could you explain exactly how limited the additional overtime is to the two special events? We did discuss this in closed session, and in my mind, it was very limited.
We're anticipating that there will be at the most 4 employees that may be entitled to some additional pay for those events, and how many hours would depend on the event, what days the events fall on.
But weren't the hours limited in toto?
Yes.
And how much is that?
Because we're talking about New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
Which is a city holiday, and we're talking about the 4th of July.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So just for those 2 event days, and just for any hours on those days that fall outside the employee's normal work schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, again, this is a first reading. This will come back to us in 2 weeks. I would go ahead and ask for all those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
No.
And that passes 3-2. And unfortunately, I think you're going to need some more water, Miss Beatty, because you have one more presentation. Here's water right here.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, please.
Okay, for the final item this evening, we have the confidential non-represented group. This is a much smaller group. It's made up of a few employees, less than 20 throughout the city, who are either in the confidential unit because they are in some way involved with the negotiations of labor contracts under the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, or they're in non-represented positions, for example, the city clerk. And this group is not a formal recognized bargaining unit. It does not, in effect, fall underneath the ordinance, but we have followed the ordinance with this group and to keep consistency. This slide looks identical to what you saw for the management group, so I won't review it again. And as I mentioned, although this unit does not fall under the provisions of the labor ordinance, we did track it with the non-sworn because a number of the employees that are in the confidential unit, but for their responsibilities under the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, would fall within the management unit. There are a few employees in this unit that are non-exempt under the FLSA, but for the most part, they are exempt employees. We did post the proposed changes to the resolution as this unit, the compensation and benefits is set forth in a resolution rather than a memorandum of agreement. We posted the proposed changes last week on Tuesday, so we had it posted a week before as required under the ordinance. And we have it scheduled for first review tonight and final consideration in 2 weeks. The proposed changes to the resolution, as highlighted in the change copy that was part of your agenda packet, are the same as what you saw for the Federation and the General Management Group in terms of the financial changes. 4% for the current fiscal year, 1.5%, 1.5%, and 3% for the 3 years going forward. Because this is a smaller group, you'll see that the costs related to the proposal are less than the management group, ranging from $56,524 this first year to $152,068 in the final year. And the changes that we're anticipating outside or not related to the financial changes in the proposed resolution range from $26,727 next year to $62,340 in the final year. We have the same updates to the PERS language that's in this agreement and the same changes to the medical insurance. The sick leave, again, is the same, and we have very similar deletions of outdated language and amendments to improve clarity and conformity. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions for Ms. Beatty? Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and open this to members of the public. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close that and bring it back to council. And I would go ahead to move and receive and file the tentative agreement for the first review.
Second.
And under further discussion? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
That passes 3-2. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Mr. City Manager, was there anything else you wanted to cover? Okay, then I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we'll be back here on Tuesday, April 19th.